Today on Locked On Red Wings, catharsis as the Detroit Red Wings snap their losing streak, beating the Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. I am your host, Brian Fisher. Without Scotty today, Scotty is feeling under the weather, so he is not here. And I apologize to our loyal midnight listeners for this episode coming up a little bit late, as I had my own game to attend to. I scored a goal, and we won in overtime for those who care, which is probably two of you guys. But we are here now, and the Red Wings finally snapped their losing streak, beating the Boston Bruins 5-4 at LCA in a game that was not nearly as close, as I feel, as the score would indicate. And we'll get into all of that in this game. Just a very cathartic win for the Detroit Red Wings, and I think that's going to be the word that keeps getting used in this episode. But before we can talk about this, there it is again, cathartic win for the Detroit Red Wings. Got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So, again, the operative word being used in this game is, and will be used in the thumbnail and the short that I posted after the game was over, is going to be catharsis. And that's because the Red Wings lately have felt as if they've almost been fighting themselves. And Dylan Larkin mentioned that himself in, I think, the media availability after the loss to Boston in the overtime the other night. And it was because, and it wasn't exactly those words, I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but he said something along the lines of, they know what they need to be doing, and they are trying, but at times when things are going tough, it feels like you're overthinking those things, and it just continues to spiral, that they're not playing with swagger. Again, paraphrasing. But it felt like in this game, as the game went on and wore on, the Red Wings gained their swagger back. And I know the shots and the score would indicate that this was a close game, and it wasn't a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. We'll talk about what went wrong in this game that led to it being a 5-4 finale. But I think there was a lot more to like in this game than there was to dislike. And the big storyline for me here is all four forward lines. They all looked good in this game. I have it on the stat sheet here, or on the show sheet, I should say, that it felt like the Detroit Red Wings had all four forward lines kind of rolling in this game. And of course, that starts with your top line. Larkin, Raymond, Finney have consistently been the Red Wings' best line night in and night out. Obviously, Lucas Raymond collects the goal on the power play. That was the inevitable game winner. But that top line is creating offensive chances in every single game. Emmett Finney had, in the third period, he had another one where I thought he was going to bury it. That's a guy that is due, and when it comes, I believe it's going to start breaking through for him. But that top line with Larkin, Raymond, and Finney looked very good again in this one, even if they only scored one goal. Well, that goal, again, came on the power play because all three of those guys play, or Raymond and Larkin at least, play on power play unit 1. Larkin did get an assist in this game as well, so he continues on his torrid pace as Lucas Raymond got a goal and an assist, 2 points from him. And you just go down the lineup, and it continues from there. You had the second line, which statistically was your worst line in this hockey game, probably, with the advanced analytics, but a lot of that has to just do with the pace of that line, but they were still highly productive. Patrick Kane, who's been so snake-bitten on the score sheet goals-wise, produced 2 key assists for the Detroit Red Wings in this game. One of them, of course, came on that power play, and that's a big factor in this one, too. A game after they go 0 for 5 and 0 for 6 on the weekend, they score immediately on the first power play with a beautiful just possessing the zone, tic-tac-toe passing play between Kane, Seider, and Raymond is just Swayman's so out of position that goal had no choice but to go in the net, honestly. It was a really good game from that second line, too, producing opportunities. Patrick Kane got the primary assist on Moritz Seider's goal as well. A nice little cycle play from Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane to find Moritz Seider for what at the time made it 2-0. So offense at 5-on-5 from the second line as a cycle was great to see. And Andrew Copp, I want to give a shout out to Andrew Copp here. I felt Andrew Copp the last two games, since reprising his role as the 2C, has looked really, really solid. You know, he plays a similar-ish game to what Marco Kasper thrived in last season. Now, obviously, Kasper has a much better pace to his game than Andrew Copp, but as his season has struggled, and he's getting back to his a little bit to his former self, and I'll touch on that in a moment here. Marco Kasper, that is. You know, Andrew Copp has been asked here to step in. He's like the third or fourth guy they've had step into that 2C role, and he looked good in that role before his season-ending injury last season, and it's because he plays that heavy forechecking game. He's not always the quickest to the corners, but he gets there. He engages in those board battles. He oftentimes wins them and gets the puck to the more skilled wingers, and he goes to the net. He had an opportunity in that game in the third period where Patrick Kane fed just a beautiful flutter pass through a couple of Boston Bruins defenders to find Andrew Copp breaking and crashing the net hard. And I think it was Korpisalo in net at that point, made a beautiful save to stop it. So Andrew Copp, you know, might not be getting on the stat sheet, but these last two games where the Red Wings have really begun to kind of find their groove again. Andrew Copp has looked really good as a 2C because he brings that two-way game that line does need, and he is winning those board battles and getting the puck to his more skilled line mates. So I just want to shout out Andrew Copp. Patrick Kane, of course, 2 assists, I've already mentioned. Alex DeBrincat got a goal that made it 3-0 at the time as that offense continues. Another, I guess you would call it a rush chance. It was a rush opportunity that turned into kind of a broken play, found the puck to DeBrincat. He fired it. That was a bad goal that Jeremy Swayman allowed. He definitely wants that one back. But that's 2 5-on-5 goals generated by the second line in this game. That's great to see. Your best players were your best players again. It's where you get down the lineup, where Scotty and I have put a lot of emphasis on this season, and I don't think they were any slouches in this game. While down the lineup may have down the forwards lineup only provided one goal for the Detroit Red Wings in this game, that may have been the best game I've seen from them. And they looked really good in the Boston game over the weekend as well, and because of the fact that we had 2 games to break down, and they ultimately lost that game. Nobody wanted to hear about how good they were in a loss on a 4-game losing streak. But now retroactively I can talk about it because they came back and they played really good again. The Danielson, Kasper, and Soderblom line looks really good. And it was, by expected goal share, your best line. Now, take for granted, they played the fewest 5-on-5 minutes together in this hockey game. But they had an expected goal share of 88%, 0.87 expected goals for, and 0.12 expected goals against. Danielson looks really, really good, and Kasper looks really, really good. I know sometimes they trade off who takes the face-offs because of the handedness situation. Kasper looks like he's getting back to how he was in games prior, with the way that he plays that heavy game with a fast pace, generating chances, had a couple of opportunities for himself. Danielson got stoned by Korpisalo on one of the third period power plays, with JVR making a beautiful between-the-legs play to find him again. I know that's not 5-on-5, but just highlighting that player individually. And then Soderblom. I mean, McClellan called him out in the postgame. Soderblom has been asked to play a heavier game, and he has begun to do so. He leveled a couple of heavy hits in this game, and he needs to do that at 6'8". He might not have the foot speed, but he's got enough length with his stride and with his stick to kind of make up for that. He's got really soft hands, and he's got a good shot. If he can learn to play physical with that size as well, he's going to be a very valuable depth piece for the Detroit Red Wings down the lineup. And he's shown it in the last couple of games. He had an opportunity in this one as well, and he set up an opponent. I wonder if I have it written down. I do take show notes. Soderblom's patience is what it was. is what I had written down, where he had the puck in the slot. He waited. He should have shot, but he tried to elect for a backdoor pass that just didn't work, and he was frustrated going to the bench. But he had a really good game too. So that's only 3 of the 4 lines. I mean, this is the strength in this game was the offense created. We got to get to a quick break, but I'll break down the 4th line and then move on as well to talk about some defensively, where I thought this team thrived before talking about where the team, still has some room for improvement after a cathartic, right? That's the operative word of the day, 5-4 win over the Boston Bruins. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Drip Drop. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands. Using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. You're going to like using Drip Drop as part of your daily routine. You can mix a packet in your morning before the gym or during that midday slump. Hydration has become non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just overall better. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKDOWNNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKDOWNNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing your best with Drip Drop. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Brian going solo as Scotty is under the weather. Hope he gets well soon. Red Wings win 5-4 over the Boston Bruins. I know I'm kind of just going down the list of players at this point and talking about everything that went well, but honestly, that's how I felt the game went. All 4 forward lines I felt contributed, if not on the stat sheet, at least on the ice productively. And the 4th line was no exception to that. And I think this is the perfect pivot, finishing with the 4th line before we move into actual notable performers. I've kind of listed every single player on the roster, but even amongst those, there were players that stood out to me as having a massive positive impact in this game outside of the guys I've already mentioned. And one of those guys is on the 4th line. James Van Riemsdyk, I think, may have had his best game as a Detroit Red Wing. He scores the first goal off a rush opportunity, mind you. And that's a huge thing. One of the things we have harped on, just quick tangent before I get back to JVR. One of the things Scotty and I have harped on, I think we mentioned on Monday's episode, was that when was the last time the Red Wings scored on a rush? An odd man rush, a short breakaway, 3-on-2, whatever. This game had 3 of them. 3 of the first 4 goals were off of rushes. And that's why it felt cathartic. One, the Red Wings were playing really well, honestly, offensively and pretty well defensively too, despite the 4 goals against in this hockey game. But one of the most cathartic things about this game was the fact that the Red Wings scored 3 of 5 goals off of quick breaks, odd man rushes. JVR's was the first one. Red Wings were hemmed in. The Boston Bruins, even though I thought the Red Wings were the much better team throughout the course of the game, the Bruins controlled the first half of the first period, I would say. And that all changed when James Van Riemsdyk scored that goal. The Albert Johansson, or the Boston Bruins rather, kind of controlled and were pressuring hard, were cycling a lot in the offensive zone of their offensive zone. And then Albert Johansson gets the puck in the corner. And shout out to the FanDuel Sports Network production team for the quick reaction to switch cameras to that one that's just along the boards. Right behind Albert Johansson, gave an A+ view of the saucer pass up the boards to find JVR on the blue line, sitting all alone for a short break in. And he doesn't miss his spot. And that is the most critical part of this all. Beautiful feed from Albert Johansson. Huge shout out there. But so many times during the course of this losing streak, and honestly the season, because the Red Wings are top 5 in expected goals for and bottom 5 in actual goals for, the Red Wings will get a golden opportunity and just not make a shot that beats a goaltender. This game, James Van Riemsdyk kind of broke the floodgates with that goal. And he had a great game outside of that as well. He had a great pocket pick in the 3rd period that created a 3-on-2 opportunity that just didn't go in for the Red Wings. He had a couple of, he made a beautiful dangle around, was it Lori for the Boston Bruins for a backhand opportunity, and a couple other chances. This is the fastest I think I've seen him play. His legs were the fastest today, and McClellan commented on that in the postgame, that his brain always works fast, but when the legs catch up to that, he's a very dangerous player. It felt like we got a little bit of vintage James Van Riemsdyk, and I can say that about JVR because he's been in the league for a long time. I was saying about Casper last week, but he's only been in the league for a year. But rewinding the clock to last year, or JVR's sake, about a decade ago, he looked very good in this hockey game. So definitely a notable performer. Compher had a couple of grade A opportunities as well. A short breakaway that he just mishandled the puck. Another one where he got the shot off, and it was saved by, I think, Korpisalo at that point as the Red Wings chased Swayman. And then Michael Rasmussen was playing well, too, up until the point where he got hurt and did not return from the game. McClellan said that he was hurt, but not like, what's the word? Structurally hurt, as in like he just wasn't strong enough to come back, is what he said, which is a weird thing to say. But we'll find out more with Michael Rasmussen. Obviously, just came off of IR with an injury too, so keep an eye on that situation. But let's move on to another notable performer. JVR was the first notable performer in this hockey game. Moritz Seider. Honestly, if it weren't for the fact that we segued perfectly into talking about JVR, should have led with Moritz Seider. Guy had 3 points in this game. We already talked about it. He scored the goal that made it 2-0 at the time. He also had 2 assists. The primary on Lucas Raymond's goal was a beautiful tic-tac-toe play, as well as the secondary on JVR's. Moritz Seider was the one who got the puck to Johansson from the corner, so helped start the play that broke JVR out. So Moritz Seider, 3 points on the night, 4 blocked shots, which is second only to JBD, who I'll talk about in a moment as well. Did take 2 penalties. One was not a coincidental, but because Zadorov got kicked out of the game because of a nasty elbow, and massive props to the officiating in this hockey game for keeping Boston under control, because that was some dirty play. And we saw it in the last game. Kastelic obviously targeted Moritz Seider, and Seider fell for it and did not do so well in the fight, although he made it up for a little bit later with a huge hit. It was a nice change of pace to see guys. Zadorov elbowed Moritz Seider in the head. He literally did a spinning elbow on Moritz Seider, got kicked out. And then Kastelic, the guy who prompted the fight with Seider in the game against Boston the first time, spears Casper in the groin as he was getting off, and the refs caught it and kicked him out as well. So it was nice to see that stuff not go unnoticed. And I imagine there's a maximum allowable fine of $5,000, probably coming both those guys' way. But Seider obviously had a great game, took 26 shifts, 23 minutes, would have had more if he didn't spend 4 minutes in the box in this hockey game. A goal, 2 assists. Before the game, he was on pace for 50 points. After 2 points, I did the math, he was on pace for 56. So I imagine after a third point, he's probably closing in on 60. He has woken up offensively, so now he has the production to go with the stellar defense that he was getting praised for before the production kicked in. Moritz Seider just turning into a do-it-all. And then how about Ben Sherratt? Ben Sherratt scores. So, and this will help segue us into what went wrong in this game. Wasn't a perfect win, although it was a good win. Ben Sherratt scores to make it 4-2 after Boston gets a little bit of momentum back. They're pressing. They're down 1 goal. Another rush, by the way, by the Detroit Red Wings. A nice feed from Dylan Larkinen and Lucas Raymond for Ben Sherratt, who is coming in as a late man on that rush. He buries it. His 4th goal on the season, which at the time tied him for, what did I say, 5th? No, tied him for 5th on the team. I believe, let me find my what I had tweeted out at the time, just to double check my memory, because that was before I went to a hockey game. It currently recording this at 1:06 in the morning. That Sherratt's 4th goal tied him for 5th on the team in goals. Now, caveat to that, it's a 4-way tie. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it fits the narrative that, holy cow, Ben Sherratt is having an incredible contract year and played 1938 himself, led the team with Simon Edvinsson in shifts. Again, Seider 4 minutes in the box, so a little short on shifts for him in this hockey game. He's been double shifting in some games where they don't trust the third pair. He was great. And that was a huge goal for the Detroit Red Wings, as they'd just given up 2 to let Boston back in it. And I'll talk about why Boston got back in this game. I've talked a lot about the positives, honestly naming almost every single player on this hockey team at this point, because it was a good offensive night and honestly a pretty solid defensive night too, but it wasn't perfect. They did allow 4 goals. We'll talk about that in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings before we send you off into your Wednesday. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump in the moment. So, if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Things weren't perfect in this hockey game, as you can probably tell by the score. They can play a good game all night long, but as we said so many times in the episode on Monday, every time the Red Wings plug 1 or 2 holes, another one starts spewing. And this was a game, too, where the goaltending and a couple defensive lapses, I don't even know if I would call it defensive lapses, kind of reared their ugly heads, mostly just goaltending. And it's a tough conversation to have. John Gibson was 11 seconds away from having an above 900 save percentage in this hockey game. And that's why I'm not so overly concerned with the 4 goals against, because the Bruins scored that 4th goal with 11 seconds left. The game was over. So on replay, when I watched period 3 after I got home from hockey, I felt a lot better about the game than when I initially saw the final score, where I thought, oh my God, they avoided disaster. It wasn't that close. And John Gibson, to his credit, getting a win can do wonders for boosting your confidence. And I thought he made a lot of really big saves, including a sequence early in the 3rd period where he had to make back-to-back big saves. And that was before the Red Wings made it 5-3. So it was still 4-2 at that time. It was before the power play goal. He made a lot of key big saves, but he also allowed 2 really soft goals. And that continues to kind of be the trend for Gibson. And in this game, he was fortunate that when the big saves came, it was before the soft saves came, or the soft goals came. But the first goal the Boston Bruins scored, Aspero's first career goal, that was a goal, and they talked about it on the broadcast. That was a goal Gibson has to make the save on. It was a shot from the point, no screen, just got through him. He was there in time to make the save, just got through him. That can't happen. And we've been ragging on John Gibson a lot, and the criticism, I think, is mostly fair, because this is a guy you gave up a 2nd, a 4th, and Mrazek, just to make the money and the roster move work, to be your 1A for the next 2 years, and he has been falling short of those expectations. That goal should not have gone in, and I think it was a big reason as to why the Boston Bruins gained momentum, because they just came off the Red Wings had just killed off a penalty. So Boston had already been building a little bit of momentum. They're down 3-0, but they just had the man advantage. They're getting shots on. Red Wings are doing a great job PKing. You killed a penalty kill. You're trying to settle it down. Boston's still bringing pressure, though. That goal doesn't go in. They don't get that spark. And so, while he's not to blame for that second goal, the Steves goal, he made the save. The rebound came out perfectly backdoor to Steves, who was sitting there. I don't think it happens if they don't get that spark from the first goal. But then he rallied back. The Red Wings scored the goal off Ben Sherratt, and 4-2 kind of swung momentum back the other way for the Red Wings. They played a really solid 3rd period. Then Hunudinov, nope, that's not quite right. you knew who I'm talking about, scored to make it 5-3. And then the goal with 11 seconds left, the one that changed his save percentage from over 900 to 895, was a pass from the point to the near side boards for a one-timer. So Gibson had to lateral a total of 3 feet. That might even not be correct, but he didn't have to go across the crease. He was turning to his left a little bit to make the save, and in the attempt to lateral, he left his 5-hole wide open for a goal against. Another one that he has to make the save on. It didn't harm the Red Wings, and that's the big thing, is usually when Gibson's been making big saves, it's already been after he's made a couple softies, and it kind of already really hurt you at that point. In this case, he made big saves early before giving up the softie, and then made big saves again before giving up another softie. It worked out for him in this regard, but he's got to be better. And the Red Wings are going to struggle to win hockey games. This is going to be the fashion they win games in if this continues to be an issue. I don't know at what point you have the Costa discussion. I would be wary of getting very, very high on the Costa horse early here because the Griffins are playing out of their effing mind right now. 2 losses on the season, only 1 in regulation. I know Costa's stats look so sexy right now. I think a 941 save percentage. But Postava and Gylander, when he's in Grand Rapids, both also are sporting 920-plus save percentages because the Griffins have one of the best offenses that always hold the puck, and one of the best AHL defensive with a ton of veterans like Justin Holl and Gustafsson and Wallinder, who have tons of NHL experience, playing back there. Now, granted, I know the veteran status thing, they're not all playing every single game, but just 1 or 2 of those guys in your lineup is going to have a huge impact, including veterans like Tuomisto at this point, Wallinder. I'm not trying to take anything away from Kosa, but just be wary that those save percentages are hugely boosted probably by the fact that Griffins team is loaded. But what I will say is it may not matter if his statistics are boosted if Gibson and Talbot can't figure it out. Talbot's been playing better, obviously, we've talked about it, but you need to. And they've got 1. And sometimes even Talbot, obviously, doesn't play great because Talbot has had a great career, but is no Vezina winner himself either. So be wary of Kosa, but it also may not matter unless Gibson can get his stuff together. JBD played in this hockey game as well. Had a mixed bag. At one point after the first period, he was out there for 10 shot attempts against, not a single shot attempt for, but he also led the team in block shots with 6. And that's what I'm talking about when I say I think the Red Wings played a pretty good defensive game, is they were blocking so many shots in this hockey game. Total blocked shots in this hockey game for the Red Wings were 20. 6 of them came from JBD. So a great reinforcement of his defensive game in this one. The Red Wings are looking for some kind of stability on that third pair. Johansson had a pretty good game, but he's been underwhelming as a whole in his sophomore season so far. Hamonic and JBD have been just like hot and cold in serviceability on the third pair, so it was good to see that. Honestly, he had a mixed bag in terms of his game overall, but I think he had a good enough a game, especially considering that they won, to warrant another opportunity. But as a whole, again, like just going back to what I was talking about, it was catharsis. To wrap things up here and circle back to what we were talking about. The offense finally broke through. They scored on rushes. They scored on the power play. It felt like pucks were finding the back of the net. They kind of found their swagger offensively, getting a lot, even more opportunities than the ones that they scored on. Goaltending is still a question mark for them, but if they can continue to play and score at the clip that they did today, they should win a lot more hockey games going forward. And, hey, would you look at that? Detroit goes from out of a playoff spot with this win to tied for second in the division with 30 points. So it's very close. I know the losing streak sucked. Losing 5 of 6 sucked, but it's still so tight in the Atlantic Division right now that you can be fortunate or unfortunate enough to go on a losing streak, but be fortunate enough that doesn't kick you out of it. So go on a little winning streak here, take this swagger, let it snowball, and the Red Wings are going to be right back in it and on top of the division. Maybe not on top of the division, getting ahead of myself there, but, be right back in the thick of things and in a playoff spot. They just got to be able to find a little bit of that consistency. But this is a good win. This was a really good win for the Detroit Red Wings, and it felt good to get that win. So hopefully they can take that, build off of it, win a couple more. They play Columbus on Wednesday, so it might not be in the division, but that's a very big game for wild card implications going forward. So get that win on Wednesday. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow previewing that game against Columbus, so stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.